Hello, Detroit. Now, we meet here at a time of great uncertainty in Detroit, a great uncertainty all across America. The era of greed and irresponsibility on Wall Street and in Washington has led us to a financial crisis as serious as any we've faced since the Great Depression. They said they wanted to let the market run wild. And now we've seen what's happened. In doing so, they've trampled our core values of fairness and balance and responsibility to one another. Everywhere you look, the economic news is troubling. But for so many Americans, for so many people here in Detroit, it isn't really news at all. 600,000 workers have lost their jobs just since January. We've got more foreclosures than at any time since the 30s, and even if you're still in your home values have been falling. Your paychecks don't go as far as they used to. It's never been harder to save. It's never been harder to retire. Never been harder to buy groceries or gasoline. And if you put it on a credit card, well, they've probably raised your rates. In so many cities and towns across America, it feels as if the dream that so many generations fought for, that Joe and Jill's parents fought for, that Michelle's parents and grandparents fought for, that my folks fought for, it feels like it's slowly slipping away. And I know these are difficult days, and nowhere have they been more difficult than in Michigan. Nowhere have they been more difficult than in Detroit. The auto industry knows something about hard times. So I know it's been hard. But here's what I also know. I know we can steer ourselves out of this crisis. Because that's who we are. Because that's what we always do. That's what America is about. Our nation's faced difficult times before. We've had slavery in this country. We've had Great Depressions in this country. We've had world wars in this country. And in each and every one of those moments, we have come together and met those challenges and emerged more unified and more prosperous than we were before. Because we've never forgotten that fundamental truth, that here in America, our destiny is not written for us, it's written by us. We decide the future of America. That's what our democracy is all about. That's what the American dream's all about. And by the way, that's why I'm running for President of the United States of America. There are many to blame for causing the crisis we're in. It starts with the speculators on Wall Street who gamed the system, the regulators in Washington who looked the other way. It is an outrage that we are now being forced to clean up their mess. But I have to say, and I've said this over the last couple of weeks, we have to act. We have to act now. We have to act responsibly because now that we're in this situation, your jobs, your life savings, your home, entire sectors of the economy, the stability of this nation are at risk. This administration started off asking for a blank check to solve this problem. And Joe Biden and I said, absolutely not. I said it was unacceptable to expect the American people to hand this administration, of all administrations, a $700 billion check with no conditions, no oversight, when a lack of oversight in Washington and on Wall Street is exactly what got us into this situation in the first place. If the American people are being asked to help solve this crisis, then you have the right to make sure that your tax dollars are protected. That's why I laid out a few conditions for Washington when this whole process began. I said we needed an independent board to provide oversight and accountability for how and where this money is spent at every step of the way. I said that if American taxpayers are financing the solution, then you should be treated like investors, and that means when the markets stabilize, that means that Wall Street and Washington should give you every penny of your money back. I said that we cannot and will not simply bail out Wall Street without helping the millions of innocent homeowners who are struggling to stay in their homes. They deserve a plan too. And I said, this one's important, I said I would not allow this plan to become a welfare program for Wall Street executives whose greed and irresponsibility have brought on this disastrous situation. Today, thanks to the hard work of Democrats and Republicans, it looks like we have a rescue plan that includes these taxpayer protections. It looks like we will pass that plan very soon. But our job is far from over, because now that we're fixing the mess on Wall Street, we need to move with the same sense of urgency to help families on Main Street. We don't just need a plan for bankers and investors. We need a plan for auto workers. We need a plan for teachers. We need a plan for small business owners. And that's why Joe Biden and I have continued to fight for an economic stimulus plan for working families, a plan that helps folks cope with rising food and gas prices, saves 1 million jobs by rebuilding our schools and our roads, helps states and cities avoid budget cuts and tax increases, a plan that would extend expiring unemployment benefits for those Americans who've lost their jobs and can't find new ones. I will fight every day of this campaign and every day of my presidency to make sure that a crisis like this never, ever happens again. And that means taking on the lobbyists and special interests in Washington. That means taking on the greed and corruption on Wall Street. That means putting in place the rules of the road and common sense regulations for our finance system that I've been calling for since last March. It is time to reform Washington. Now, my opponent, John McCain, he talks about getting tough on Wall Street. That's what he's been saying for the last few days. But you know what? You can't make up for 26 years in 26 days. Let's look at the track record. For most of those 26 years, he's been against the common sense rules and regulations that could have stopped this problem. He says he'll take on the corporate lobbyists, but he doesn't mention he's put 7 of the biggest lobbyists in Washington in charge of his campaign. If you think those lobbyists are working day and night to elect John McCain just to put themselves out of business, well, I've got a bridge to sell you up in Alaska. John McCain talks about taking on the Old Boys Network. The Old Boys Network. Let me tell you, in the McCain campaign, that's called a staff meeting. You know, you can't just talk the talk and not walk the walk. The truth is, for 26 years in Washington, Senator McCain has followed an out-of-touch philosophy, the idea that if we give more and more to those with the most, prosperity will somehow trickle down on everyone else. The idea that no harm will be done if we let lobbyists shred consumer protections, fight against every regulation that is wise and necessary. Well, what we've seen over the last few weeks is nothing less than the final verdict on this failed philosophy. And I am running for President of the United States because the dreams of the American people cannot be endangered anymore. 8 years of this nonsense is enough. We can't afford 4 more. Think about it. On Friday, we had a debate, and on issue after issue, from taxes to health care to the war in Iraq, you heard John McCain make the case for more of the same. He kept on asking me, you don't understand. No, I understand. You want more of the same. The same Bush tax policies, the same Bush energy policies, the same Bush Iraq policies. A 5th grader could understand. It's more of the same. Just as important as what we heard from John McCain was what we didn't hear. We talked about the economy for 40 minutes, and not once did John McCain talk about the struggles that middle-class families are facing every day. Right here in Michigan, right here in Detroit, all across the country. He defended his plan to give $300 billion in tax cuts to corporations and the wealthiest Americans. He had nothing to say about the fact that wages have flatlined and jobs are being shipped overseas. He railed against some study of bears in Montana. He talks about those bears all the time. I don't know what's going on with those bears in John McCain. But he had nothing to say about the fact that more and more Americans can't afford to pay for college, health care for their families, can't afford a retirement that's dignified and secure. Senator McCain spoke again and again about the need to keep spending $10 billion a month in Iraq. But he said nothing about the need to end this war so we can invest in good jobs and rebuild our roads and bridges right here in Michigan, lay broadband lines throughout rural communities to plug them into the World Wide Web. The truth is that through 90 minutes of debating, John McCain had a lot to say about me, but he had nothing to say about you. Not once did he say the words middle class. Not once did he talk about working families. See, I think Senator McCain just doesn't get it. He doesn't understand that the storm hitting Wall Street hit Main Street long ago. That's why his first response to the greatest financial meltdown in generations was a Katrina-like response. Sort of stood there, said the fundamentals of the economy are strong. That's why he's been shifting positions these last 2 weeks, looking for photo ops, trying to figure out what to say and what to do. Well, I know what we need to do. You know what we need to do. Joe Biden knows what we need to do. We need to stop giving tax breaks to corporations and CEOs on Wall Street, start standing up for the families right here in Michigan. We need to turn the page on those failed policies of the last 8 years. Finally, put working people first. That's why I'm running for president. That's why Joe Biden is running for vice president, because it's about time that you had somebody who had in their gut the desire to fight for you and create a better America. We don't need any more out of touch, you're on your own style of leadership in Washington. We need a president who will change this economy so that it finally works for you and your family. A president who will finally fight for the middle class every single day. That's what I intend to do when I'm president. Now, Joe mentioned this. We have a different way of measuring the fundamentals of our economy. We know that the fundamentals we use to measure economic strength are whether we're living up to that fundamental promise that has made this country great, that in America, anybody can make it. that you can make it if you try, that everyone should have the chance to live their dreams. And I know I wouldn't be here, and Joe and Jill, Michelle, none of us would be here without that promise. I know that's the promise we have to keep again. You know, when I talk to those young veterans who come back from Iraq and Afghanistan, I see my grandfather who signed up after Pearl Harbor and joined Patton's Army and was rewarded by a grateful nation after he came back from the war with a chance to go to college on the GI Bill. In the face of a young student I meet who sleeps just 3 hours a night because she's going to school and working the night shift, you know, I think about my mom who raised my sister and me while she was working and going to school at the same time, who had to get food stamps a couple of times, but was still able to send us to the best schools in the country. When I listen to another worker tell me about his factory job shutting down, I think about Michelle's dad, shift worker, never went to college, but on that paycheck was able to support a family of 4, was able to create the kind of life in which he could watch his daughter and his son graduate, get a degree from Princeton University. I think about those men and women on the south side of Chicago who I stood by and fought for 2 decades ago after the local steel plant closed. I think about those folks at the steel plants and what it was like for them not just to lose their jobs, but to lose their health care and their pensions and their sense of dignity, who they were, tied up to what it meant to work every day, the dignity of a job. You know, those are my heroes. Theirs are the stories that shape me. And it is on their behalf that I intend to win this election and keep the promise of America alive as President of the United States. So, Detroit, understand this. That's what we mean when we're talking about change. You know, John McCain, he's been grabbing our posters. He said, I'm for change too. And you got to explain, change isn't a slogan. Change isn't just changing your television ads. Change isn't suddenly sounding like you're mad at Wall Street and lobbyists when they're the people you've been fighting for. Change is what's in your gut, what's in your heart. It's what you believe. That's the kind of change we need right now. That's the kind of change Joe Biden and myself want to bring to Washington. Change means a tax code that doesn't reward the lobbyists who wrote it, but the American workers and small businesses who deserve it. I'll eliminate capital gains taxes for small businesses and startups. That's how we'll grow our economy and create the high-wage, high-tech jobs of tomorrow. I will cut taxes for 95% of working families. My opponent doesn't want you to know this, but under my plan, tax rates will actually be less than they were under Ronald Reagan. If you make less than $250,000 a year, you will not see one dime of your taxes go up. I offer 3 times the tax relief for middle-class families as Senator McCain does, because in an economy like this, you can't afford higher taxes. I will finally keep the promise of affordable, accessible health care for every single American. That's what change is. I know something about this. I remember my mother, she died of cancer when she was 53. And that was sad enough, but seeing her on her hospital bed, having to call and argue with the insurance companies because they said, well, maybe there's a pre-existing condition. Maybe we don't have to pay for your treatment. I know what it's like to see a loved one suffer, not just because they're sick, but because of a broken healthcare system. And it's wrong, and it will change. And that's why under my healthcare plan, if you have healthcare, we will lower your premiums. If you don't, you'll get the same kind of coverage that members of Congress give themselves. And we will tell insurance companies no more discrimination against those who are sick and in need of care the most. We're going to create the jobs of the future, right here in Michigan, right here in Detroit. by transforming our energy economy. We're going to tap our natural gas reserves. We'll invest in clean coal technology. We'll find ways to safely harness nuclear power. But nothing could be as important as us helping our auto companies retool and get the loans they need so that the fuel-efficient cars of the future are built right here in Detroit, right here in Michigan, not in Japan, not in South Korea, but right here in the United States of America. You know, we have gotten done. I was talking to Debbie Stabenow and Carl Levin, congratulating them, Jennifer Granholm, because we have gotten loan guarantees out of the Senate, out of the House, designed to allow us to create the cars of the future right here. Now there's some talk that, and the reason we got it done is because of your governor, Governor Granholm, because of Debbie Stabenow, because of Carl Levin, because of John Dingell, because of the congressional delegation from Michigan. But there's been talk that that might be delayed. We've got to fast track that money. Get it here right now. Get the research going right now. Make the batteries of the future right now. Create the electric cars of the future right now. And that's what we're going to do in an Obama and Biden administration. We're not going to wait. We should have done it 10 years ago. We're going to do it right now. We're going to make it easier for the American people to buy these new cars. And then we are going to invest $150 billion over the next decade, $15 billion a year in affordable, renewable sources of energy, wind power and solar power, the next generation of biofuels, an investment that will lead to new industries and create 5 million new jobs that pay well and can't ever be outsourced, that will end our dependence on oil from the Middle East, that will strengthen our hand with Russia and Venezuela and Iran, that might just save our planet from getting warmer. Now's the time for us to act on an energy policy that makes sense for America, and it's going to get done under an Obama administration. Now's the time to finally meet our moral obligation to provide every child a world-class education. From the day that child is born to the day that child graduates from college, because it will take nothing less to compete in the global economy. This week, China had a space launch, had a moonwalk. Think about the competition where we've been falling behind in science and technology, in the number of engineers. We've always been the inventors. We've always been the discoverers. That is not going to stop this generation. And that's why we're going to invest in early childhood education to close the achievement gap. We are going to recruit an army of new teachers and pay them higher salaries and give them more support. And in exchange, I will ask for higher standards and more accountability. And I will speak to the parents of America and say, parents, you got a parent. You're going to have to turn off the television set and put away the video games and instill a thirst for knowledge in your children. And we will make a commitment to every young person in America. If you serve your community or your country, if you work in an underserved school or an underserved hospital, if you join the Peace Corps or serve in our military, then I promise you, we will provide you with the resources you need. So you can afford to go to college without taking out a $20,000 or $40,000 or $80,000 loan, because we need you to succeed in this next century so that America can succeed. That is going to be a commitment that the Obama administration keeps to the young people of America. This is the kind of change we need, not slogans. The words don't matter. What matters is, what are you fighting for? And Joe Biden and I, our entire careers, have been fighting for the bottom-up growth the innovation that will advance the American economy by advancing the dreams of all Americans. I understand times are hard. I will not pretend that the changes we are seeking are going to be easy. I will not pretend that they will be without cost, although I've presented how we can achieve these changes in a fiscally responsible way. It's going to be difficult. It took us a long time to get into this mess. It's going to take us a long time to get up. I know that we're going to have to overcome our doubts, our cynicism, our divisions. We're going to have to pull together black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American, young, old, rich, poor, gay, straight. We are all going to have to come together to challenge the special interests because they don't want reform. They want the status quo. They will fight tooth and nail for the next 5 weeks and then for the next 5 years to keep things just the way they are. But I'm running for president because we simply can't afford 4 more years of this failed economic policy. A philosophy that works for Wall Street and not for you and ends up devastating both. I don't want to wake up 4 years from now and find more Americans lost their jobs. More Americans lost their health care. More Americans lost their savings. I don't want to find out that our country failed to invest in our ability to compete, that our schools are still crumbling, that our children are looking at a mountain of debt because of our irresponsibility. I don't want to see that our financial markets failed to find a firmer footing and that manufacturing has continued to leave America. At this defining moment, we have the chance to stand up and say, enough is enough. And I believe that we can do this before because Americans have done it before. Time and again, we've battled back from adversity by recognizing the common stake that we have in each other's success. That's why it's not called Joe's dream or Barack's dream or Sally's dream or Mike's dream. It's called the American dream because everybody's invested in it. Everybody's got a part to play. That's why our economy hasn't just been the world's greatest wealth generators. It's bound America together. It's created jobs. It's made the dream of opportunity a reality for generation after generation. It's made us a beacon around the world where people said, you know what, I may not be getting a fair shake here, but I'll bet I can get a fair shake in America. I've heard that if somebody's got some ambition, if somebody's willing to work hard, they can make it in America. And now it falls to us, this generation, to continue this dream. And I know sometimes it seems like it can't happen, but just think about how we got here. You know, some of us had grandparents or parents who said, I'll never be able to go to college, but my child will go to college. I'll never be able to start my own business, but I'll bet my child can start her own business. I might not be able to be a college professor, but maybe my child can be a professor. I might not be able to own my own home. I've got to rent, but maybe my children, my grandchildren, they'll be able to have a home they call their own. I might not ever be able to have the right to vote, but maybe someday my grandchild might be the mayor of Detroit. Or maybe I might not have a lot of money, but my son might end up being a United States senator. I might live in a small village, but someday my son might run for president of the United States of America. That's what we're fighting for, Detroit. So that 40 years from now, our children look back and they realize that we fought for them the same way our parents and grandparents fought for us. And I need your help. So if you are willing to join with me and fight with me, and yes, do some community organizing with me, then I promise you, we will win Michigan. We will win this election. And you and I together, we're going to change the country and change the world. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.